This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we're in Littleton, Colorado. I'm here at the Brain Injury Hope Foundation. Since 1999, this nonprofit has been providing resources and education about life-changing symptoms of head injuries. I am here with the vice president as well as the co-founder. Ladies, thanks so much for joining us here today. Marianne, let's start off a little bit about yourself. This is an organization that basically you've co-founded. You now working in the industry for over 40 years providing care. Back then you realized that people were finding some challenges basically when they found themselves with a brain injury, and you decided to do something about it. Share with me a little bit about this journey.
What we did, Kay Jones and I, about 20 years ago, we started the Brain Injury Hope Foundation because individuals who had brain injuries couldn't afford to live. They couldn't afford food, they couldn't afford their rent or utilities, and so we found ourselves writing checks out of our own bank accounts and thought that that wasn't always such a great idea. So we started the Hope Foundation, and people are able to access money for very basic needs.
That is great. Let me ask you, Joanne, basically this is a personal journey that has turned professional for you. You really are the story of survivor to thriver. Why don't you share with me a little bit about this passion that you now have?
Yes, I'm a brain injury survivor, and in fact I worked with Marianne. She's a cognitive therapist, and that's how, and also I had heard about her through the network as being one of the best. And so I had my first brain injury in 1992. I was hit by a cement truck in the Bahamas, and from the moment that truck hit, my life changed. One thing about me, I've learned that I'm resilient, and I decided that that happened for a reason, and I needed to be doing something about it. So the first thing I did 7 months out, it was my first talk on getting hit, getting up, and moving beyond. My talk has morphed into getting hit, getting up, moving beyond, 13 keys to empowerment for brain injury survivors. And so I have a passion for the whole community because I'm part of it.
Absolutely. That is an inspiring story. Obviously, there's no doubt about it, the brain is the most complicated part of our body. I mean, if I hurt my foot or I hurt my arm, a simple glance or an x-ray, I can pretty much see what's going on. Yet, when it comes to the brain, that is not so. Why do we call this the invisible injury, really?
It's the invisible injury because people have symptoms that other individuals can't see at all. They don't realize it, and people are having problems with their memory, concentration, they can't think of words, and it isn't visible, and people a lot of times say to them, well, you look fine. Right. And people, it's very upsetting to individuals a lot of times because they're dealing with these symptoms day in and day out, and they really need some assistance in normalizing that. So that's why it's called invisible.
Your organization basically is dealing with brain injury, MTBI, mild to moderate traumatic brain injuries. Share with the viewers out there, what does that mean?
Well, what it means is that there's 3 different levels, basically, mild, moderate, and severe. And people who have severe injuries many times are hospitalized or have more visible types of injuries. When you have a mild to moderate injury, you can't really see it, but it creates a whole constellation of symptoms that are difficult to recover from.
That is amazing. I mean, obviously, education is vital to what your organization does, first of all. There's a lot of misinformation out there, false information out there. Many people would assume that you have to hit your head to have a brain injury. They would assume that maybe you have to have loss of consciousness to have a brain injury, but you're basically saying that's not so all the time.
That's true, and we've seen the whole spectrum, from people falling off horses to people having automobile accidents to people who are walking around with brain injuries and don't even know they have them. And so our whole goal here is to provide emergency assistance for people with brain injury. That's what Marianne was referring to. And my business partner and I, Gayan Brandenburg, who's the president and executive director of our organization now, we have a mission that we're adding to this, which is to provide the education and training through something called the Survivor Series. And we had been involved with the Survivor Series at another organization, and now we're looking for funding through grants, through donations, whatever, so we can put this together again. And the beauty of Survivor, in our heyday, we had 70 to 90 survivor professionals who serve them, and family members. And when we were doing this and we built up the reputation, we had 70 to 90 people that would show up for the Survivor Series. In fact, Marianne has been on some of the panels that we did. So we're really committed to emergency funds. We're also committed to providing education training. The greatest thing about this, though, it's not just about the education training. When people show up to this, it gives them a sense of belonging. It gives them a sense of connectedness. We give them a free meal. We give them a sense of that they fit into this. That sometimes people with brain injury don't feel they fit in anywhere. Or nobody. You'll hear this with brain injured people. Nobody gets us. And when you walk into that room, it's a bunch of people who get each other. So it's multi-level in terms of the value for what we're doing. And that's why this is such a passion for me. And we're really chomping at the bit to get some more funds so that we can resurrect this and add this to our repertoire.
That is great. I mean, like we said, a lot of misinformation out there. I mean, in sports in general, people get, in certain sorts, they're getting concussions like it's commonplace. People even getting concussions, multiple concussions. Do these concussions, can they multiply? I mean, can they accumulate, should I say, where they can turn into something more serious?
Absolutely. Brain injuries are called cumulative injuries. And so if you hit your head a couple times, not so hard, and then you have another injury that's a little bit more, then you really, really manifest a lot of significant symptoms.
I mean, obviously, a brain injury should not be taken lightly. Bottom line is, I mean, matter of fact, if it's unidentified, I would imagine it can really cause some problems later on.
Absolutely. People have all kinds of problems, and then it goes on for a period of time. And if people don't get treatment, frequently, it does get a little bit worse than if they get treatment.
I would imagine diagnosis is even more challenging because of the fact, like I said earlier, if you break your foot, you get an X-ray, you can see that. We would assume that you get an MRI or a CAT scan that something would come back, but that's not always the case. I mean, many times we're talking about it comes back normal, and yet there still is a problem. Is that right?
Absolutely, it's true. And physicians are getting much more adept at being able to pick up the symptoms because of all the people coming back from the wars and all of the sports-related injuries. It's becoming much more common now.
I mean, to experience some of these symptoms, if you will, it has to be very life-changing. Has to be scary, frightening to be going through something like this. What are the symptoms that people should be on the lookout for?
Individuals should look for symptoms related to memory loss, inability to concentrate and pay attention, feeling like they're in a fog. A lot of times they say, my brain feels foggy, not being able to think of words, being unable to pay their bills on time, do functional tasks that they've done in the past normally.
First and foremost, the organization provides education. Like she said earlier, basically the series, the Survivor Series, that is paramount to what you offer now. This is something that's done monthly. Not only is it education for the person themselves, but for the families that are affected by that, the caregivers, the doctors. Everyone is pretty much in this community now that is learning. That has to be very heartwarming for people to know that there's a place they can go to and be understood.
It's extremely heartwarming, and people also get to network and meet with other people, and friendships can be formed from there. Plus, they get some information and a lot of times people in the family might not understand what their family member's going through, and they might not understand how they've had personality changes, or they're more irritable, or they're losing things, whatever's going on. So we really want to educate people. We'll put together, once we get the funding for this next year, we want to put together a Survivor Series of survivors. So we'll have a panel of people like me and others that will be interviewing, and people hear other people, and you'll see everybody in the audience just going down like this and shaking their heads, and family members, the light bulbs that go off, and for the professionals who serve them. I mean, it's a great forum for all of that.
That is fantastic. Obviously, with information, we're given hope. I mean, we get hope because we understand what it is we're going through, rather than being in the dark about it, which is very scary. While we're healing, although, life goes on. Bills need to get paid. It's very hard to cope with some of this that's going on. Share with me how the emergency financial funding is definitely a critical part as well.
Yes, absolutely. If people don't have the money to eat properly, their brains can't heal right. If they don't have a place to live, if they don't have the money to pay their rent, then, it's really much harder to recover. And that's why we chose that as our mission.
That is great. Viewers, take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. What you're going to see, first of all, is their website. This is a brand new website they have put together out there, chock full of information. We're talking about books that you can learn out there. You can also see resources, links, blogs. Really a great way to understand what is available to you. Also understanding what are some of the treatments out there. I mean, there's a lot of treatment options that people don't understand. This is a great way for you to understand and learn that as well. Obviously, like you said, this was something that started with you $1 out of your wallet, if you will, and you realized that probably that wasn't the best way to do it, but it felt right at the time. As we fast forward now, donations are vital to what make this work. For those out there that want to donate not only on a volunteer board or from a financial perspective, how do they do that?
You can go to the website, and there's a donation link that you can donate through. You can find a place to send a check. We have an address, and many people donate that way. Or sometimes people donate, just like they want to donate a car or something, and we can convert that.
Let me ask you this, as you look now, and you've seen many success stories just throughout the years. If you look back to when this first happened, I would imagine people in your industry back in that day, they experienced the same thing you did. They've seen people struggling, yet not every one of them did something about it. You did. Has this been rewarding for you?
It has. People are very, very touched, even if they only get $500 or something. Many times they'll be able to go out and get a job or put a down payment on an apartment. It's been very rewarding. People are very grateful.
Let me ask you, Joanne, obviously this is something you've gone through. I would imagine when this is happening, you almost feel kind of alienated from everyone else, because is it a time when you're kind of misunderstood, if you will?
I think people with brain injury do feel alienated. I do think they feel misunderstood, and they feel nobody gets them. And it's because people who are trying to support you will say, gee, that happens to me too. Or I have a bad memory too. Or, gee, I'm over 40, and this, whatever they say. And the truth is, they might have some of the issues. It's not the same, because the one difference, Mary Lou Asimovic has written a book on mild traumatic brain injury, and she has a reserve model. And the most important thing is people without a damaged brain or a brain injury have a bigger reserve. If you look at a pie, they've got half the pie. And then the rest of the pie you use for emotional and physical and cognitive. People with a brain injury might have an eighth of that pie. And so you take the rest of your energy just to survive and move to thriving. And when your reserves go, you get into a cognitive fatigue. And that's when you start losing your keys and forgetting your water bottles places and doing things that aren't typical of what you were used to doing. So the community, many of us have felt misunderstood. And when people say that, then what happens is people shut down and they don't want to talk about it. That's what happened to me in the early 90s, because it was too exhausting to even try to figure out how to even explain it to them. When Marianne shared this reserve model with me, and it was like a light bulb went off, and I use that in my keynote and motivational speaking now to help give them some words, and I did get permission from Mary Lou Asimovic to use this model and to give them something that will help them to explain to people. And when I have explained this to people in my own life, and I actually show them the whole reserve model, they get it, they get me, and I don't receive that type of input anymore.
That has to feel good. I mean, because quite honestly, simple, I forget my keys here, that is a night and day difference from somebody who is experiencing these symptoms, overlapping symptoms, cognitive, language skills, all these things that are very life-changing. I think that's very exciting.
The biggest thing is when we talk about moving from surviving to thriving, it's really about looking at, you're not going to be who you were and how you were after you've experienced this brain injury. The good news is you work towards a new normal. And you celebrate the small steps to get to that new normal. And who you were is who you were. Life can be really great in your new normal. I'm an example of that. I've had multiple cognitive events in my life. I'm here with 3 brain injuries, one in 1992, and then 3 getting rear-ended in 2014 and having 2 more. Going back to Marianne, going back to vision therapy, going back to all these different therapies to get myself back again. And so I'm here to tell you and to share with you, not to tell you, but share with you and to people who are viewers that it's the tiny, small steps we want to acknowledge. Life might not be how it was. It can still be better. And it takes an intention, and it takes wonderful people like Marianne and all the other people out here who do treatment.
Not only celebrate who you were, but who you are now, and celebrating who you become. Joanne, this for you is a firsthand experience. You can be part of that group and literally look in their eyes and say, been there, done that. It has to be heartwarming for you, touching for you, realizing that you're there for somebody, possibly back in the day when no one was there for you.
You know, it's really interesting because the first time I got in front of a brain-injured audience, and I was working in corporate at the time, and I was asked to be on a survivor panel, and then to do actually my getting up speech another time. And when I got up in front of this group, it was really interesting. It was the first time I felt a sense of belonging. I went there to help and inspire this audience, and I came out so helped and so inspired myself and feeling my own sense of connectedness and belongingness. And I knew then that everything that happened for this reason, so that I could be out here giving support to people in my community. And so and when Marianne approached me and my organization to take this over, I went to my business partner, Gan, and said, do you want to do this? I really want to do this, and we both agreed. And so we are very intimately involved in the Brain Injury Hope Foundation and really look forward to continuing this journey.
That is a wonderful story. Last time, viewers, take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. You're going to see their website once again. Check out the About page there. This will explain exactly why the organization exists. You can also take a look at the volunteer staff, the board they've got there as well. A lot of people who are coming together to provide really coaching, training, transformation for people out there who are going through this life-changing event. This is an organization that began back in 1999. That is the Brain Injury Hope Foundation, surviving to thriving. This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and if you don't know, now you know.